Okay, everybody, it's me, Gregory Mannarino. It is still Wednesday, July 14th, 2021, and this is my just lovely post-market wrap-up. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, as usual, but, it's more dog shit, wrapped in cat shit, soaked in cow puke. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And after the testimony today of Yellowstone Powell before, our representatives, I mean, it just makes me want to, freak out. But I think you all know that. More of the same nonsense on that end of it, and we'll get to there in just a moment. Let's talk about the market real quick here. So, you know how this played out today. Pretty extraordinary. Earlier, pre-market futures were down across the board. And then, of course, we get Yellowstone Powell coming out here basically explaining that the Fed's going to continue to buy it all, regardless of anything else. That's really the truth. And that's pretty much what carried over later on in the day. It's astonishing to me. It's not transitory anymore, inflation. It's going to moderate after, an indeterminate amount of time. It's only been like 6 months. So, well, of course, there's no timeline, there's no anything. And it's kind of revolting to hear our so-called representatives not ask any real questions today. If you did catch some of this, if you were unlucky enough, why is it, in your opinion, that not one single member of Congress today, our representatives, asked about the exploding debt to GDP ratio, how the Federal Reserve is literally buying it all? I just don't understand it. I really don't, but I'm going to leave that up to you. So let's go back to this market. So what happened after, again, we had stock futures negative, which reversed positive after Yellowstone Powell said, oh, don't worry about it. We're just going to keep supporting the economy. He means market. And destroying the dollar. We're going to talk about the dollar too. Some big news here today. So the Dow put on a gain, the S&P 500 put on a gain, the Nasdaq finished slightly negative. Let's talk about the dollar. The dollar got hit pretty hard today after testimony from the Fed. He's not concerned about inflation. They're really not. Although they are way, way, way above their target. The producer price index making an historic move higher today. Of course, more and more retailers coming out of the woodwork saying, oh, no, 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 we're going to be passing all of these costs on to the consumer because, our CEOs, they need that big fat bonus. Of course, that's the way it always works. You know that. I told you. The well-off and the rich, they're going to do great while the middle class gets erased. That's the truth. Gold and silver, on top of the cratering dollar today, did very well. Cryptocurrencies recovered and ended relatively flat. They were down earlier. Crude oil surprisingly took a big hit today, about 3%. Won't last. It will not last. Crude oil is the lifeblood of the military-industrial complex. You all know that. The 10-year yield, stable. But you have to understand, too, when I always, literally always, refer to the debt market. The debt market. It's kind of like a broken record in my head. I talk about the yield curve. It's flattening out, pointing towards an economy that is in free fall. But the debt market isn't real. Again, we have the Federal Reserve who's rigging the entire yield curve. Okay, forget about just the federal funds rate. The Fed is buying all the debt. They are the largest purchaser of debt on the planet. Okay, so it's not real to a very, very large degree, although you do need to watch it to get clues as to where cash is moving. Understanding the concept, for example, that when you have rates artificially suppressed like this, okay, for now over an entire decade, what does it do? By design, it pushes cash into risk assets. I'm talking about equities or the stock market, therefore inflating a bubble. You understand? It's very simple. So you must watch where cash is moving through the markets. And this is how you stay ahead of the curve, okay? Period. Now, I want to talk about a bunch of stuff, news that we got today. Let's talk about the news that we got today. So the U.S. budget deficit now hit its largest shortfall. No, I'm sorry. Its second largest shortfall in history. And as I have explained to you, debts and deficits are going to continue to balloon with no end in sight. Guess who's making up the difference? Where do these shortfalls come from? Who pays for it? Well, the Federal Reserve. It's borrowed by the Fed and it's put on your back. You understand? I think you understand that too. So the second largest budget shortfall in history. Just lovely here. We also found this out with regard to the U.S. dollar purchasing power. It suffered its largest loss of purchasing power, the U.S. dollar, in 39 years. 39 years. Okay, a lot of you probably aren't even 39 years old. Lovely, isn't it? I just happen to be 55. Anyway, so that's a second piece of news here. And then we heard from the European Central Bank regarding digital euro, more control. So this is what came out of the mouth of the European Central Bank. This having a digital euro, okay, would allow consumers to pay without the need for banknotes or coins. Lovely. It's all about control. Just like I told you yesterday. The Bank of International Settlements talking about how they're planning on absolute control. People, that's their words. I did not make that up. Absolute control. That's what central banks want. That's what they're going to get. Now let's move on here. Talking about Yellowstone Powell and his testimony before our, what's the right word here? Mentally retarded. I'm sorry. That's what they are. They're mentally retarded members of Congress who don't serve our interest whatsoever. Okay? They serve the corporate agenda. That's it. You don't matter. Not at all. So, Powell said right off the bat that Federal Reserve monetary policy remains appropriate, meaning he's going to continue to buy assets, a minimum of $80 billion per month in treasuries and $40 billion in mortgage-backed securities. Okay. It was interesting. One person did ask an interesting question with regard to buying mortgage-backed securities. I have explained to you that the Federal Reserve, by buying at least, this is the floor, $40 billion of mortgage-backed securities every month, is supplying artificial demand to the market, henceforth why we have a housing bubble that is beyond belief. Now, Powell kind of sidestepped this, and he downplayed that the Federal Reserve is indeed causing artificial demand. So let me ask you, though, since I know all of you are really smart, if an entity out here, the Federal Reserve, is buying at least $40 billion per month of mortgage-backed securities, can you explain to me, really, seriously, somebody out here, how this is not providing artificial demand? How does that work? Does he mean that if he stopped buying, if the Fed stopped buying $40 billion of mortgage-backed securities, then everything would just be exactly the way it is? How about no? You see, this is what they do. It's a freak show. He did go on to talk about his powerful tools. Really big, fat, powerful tools. It's unbelievable. He did also say that housing prices, going back to housing, are moving higher at a quick pace. I wonder why that's happening. Maybe because the dollar is plunging with regard to purchasing power? Oh, maybe that's it. Yes, everything's inflating. It's unbelievable. Let me see here. I pretty much covered it. He went on and on and on. And then how about this new thing? This $3.5 trillion budget deal that they're putting together right now. Oh, that's really going to be great. Where are we getting all that cash from? Oh, we don't have it. Comes from the Fed. They're going to create it out of thin air. And guess what that's going to do? Create more inflation. Just lovely. You see, you have to understand. The government works for the banks. And the Federal Reserve is determined to inflate. People, no guy out here anywhere has explained to you that the central bank's end game, their goal, is to continue to inflate on a scale that's biblical. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're not going to stop. And they're being helped by our representatives because they represent us. They want to help the American people. They've sold out the nation and the world to the banks. The banks are the government. The central banks rule the world. All right, that's all you need to know. Nothing else matters. That's it. And we've lost. There's no way to turn this around. Understand that. None, zero. They've already eliminated most of the largest part of the population, and that was the middle class. You understand? Just like I explained to you from like over a decade ago, a new feudal system, extreme haves, extreme have-nots. Sound familiar to you? Well, it really should, because we are there. Anyway, people, all right, look, that's it. Lots of important stuff in this video as usual. Please share my work. I don't have social networks anymore. I count on you to post my stuff on Facebook, Twitter, and wherever else you want to post this stuff. Like I told you, we're a team, and I need you. So please help me out. Get this out there. Maybe we can get through to some more people, although I don't know what kind of difference it's going to make anymore. All right, love you a lot. I will see you all in the morning.